Alright, so this is our daughter's 2017 Hyundai Elantra SE, and it is due for 155,000 mile service. We're going to be jacking up the vehicle, changing the oil and the oil filter, rotating the tires, changing the engine air filter, and changing the cabin air filter today. So we're going to get started. The first thing we do is loosen all the lug nuts, like one or two turns, just to break them loose while the weight of the car is on the ground. That'll help us get those off later. So we have links in the video description to everything, every part, every tool, every crush washer, torque specifications, oil filter, all the filters used, and all the tools used. So please check that out. So we're just going to do that all the way around. We won't bother filming that. Alright, so now that we have all the lug nuts loosened while the weight of the car's on the ground, the next step is to jack up our vehicle to get it on all four jack stands. This particular vehicle, I can't find anywhere in any manuals or online where it has any jack points other than the four pinch welds, which are down here. And so the problem with that is typically cars have jack points that you use the floor jacks to get the car up, and then you slide your jack stands in place on the pinch welds and lower the weight down. But if that's all you have to jack it up, then you don't have anywhere else to put that. So the best thing I found, I have four floor jacks. I bought these two little ones just because of this vehicle. And so I'll jack it up with the floor jack, and I'll scooch the jack stand as close to the floor jack as I can. They're not going to both fit at the right place on that pinch weld because there's a narrow part on each pinch weld, a gap where you're supposed to put the weight. So I use these little hockey puck things, I call them, have a groove in it, and I hug the pinch weld with that so it protects it. So I line that up with these floor jacks. And that's, you got to get down on the floor, you got to get a visual of what you're looking at, and then you got to jack it up. So it's not the easiest, but that's what we're going to do right now. Alright, so what we did, I have two larger floor jacks. We're using those on either side of the front because the front's heavier with the engine. I have these two lower rated floor jacks. They're 1.5 tons in the back. There's a 3 ton in the front. And so we got these where the hockey puck was under the pinch weld and the jack was putting a little pressure on it. And once we got both of these that way, I did one side, my wife did the other side, and we got the front pretty level. We got the front tires a few inches off the ground. So now what we've done on the back is we again have our hockey puck on the pinch weld. We got these jacks just to where they're just starting to put pressure on the car. So now one of us is going to do this side, the other one's going to do that side, and we're going to kind of do it in sequence. So that's what we're trying to do because it's not the easiest to keep them all on the same way. So that's what we're going to do right now. Alright, so even though it's a little awkward, this did work best where we did the two front wheels together using two people. Otherwise with one you'd have to do like 1 or 2 pumps and go to the other side and do 1 or 2 pumps. You got to keep them kind of close so you can run into problems with the hockey pucks and everything. So you want it to be as stable as you can. Then we got the front wheels off the ground. Then we did the same thing with the back where they were off the ground in a good amount. Then we came back to the front, wanted it to be a little higher than it was, so we did like 3 more pumps on the front. Got our jack stands underneath on the front. Then when we got them under there, we had a gap between the pinch weld and the jack stand. So we lowered them down very slowly until the pinch weld is just above the jack stand. The reason I typically put all the weight of the vehicle on the jack stands and I use the floor jacks as a safety On this particular car, the way it is, and using these hockey pucks and the pinch welds and all that being not that robust, on this car, since I have 4 floor jacks and floor jack stands, I already have a redundancy there for safety. I feel better about leaving the weight on the floor jacks, and then my jack stand is just barely below the floor jack on all 4 of them. So if a floor jack had a hydraulic failure or something, it would slip maybe a millimeter or a couple of millimeters before it hit the jack stand. So that's the way all these are, and that's the best way I've found for this vehicle to do the tire rotation. If you were just doing the oil change, you could use ramps. It'd be a lot easier, but I always do tire rotations with all my services, so this is what I need to do. So I hope that's been helpful. The rotation on this vehicle is different than on every other vehicle I have. On the Hyundai tire rotation, the back tire comes to the front on the same side, so that tire will end up here. The front tire crisscrosses to the opposite side, so this front tire will end up being the back tire on that side. So that's just kind of backwards of most, but the same thing is accomplished. So now that we already loosened everything when it was on the ground, then it's pretty simple to take these off. And these have the hubcaps. This is the SE model, so these are just hubcaps, and so you can just kind of take the hubcap off. Lift the wheel off. This is a brand new tire that my daughter recently had replaced. We were able to get it to match the others. But it's always good just to inspect, make sure that the inside doesn't have any bubbles or anything, make sure the tread is good, and also that there's no screws, nails, huge rocks in there. Just give it a quick visual inspection. So this is going to go all the way back to the opposite side. So right now we're just going to do that. We're going to do the tire rotation and put everything on except for this wheel here we'll leave off so we can do the oil change from this side. So coming in from this side of the vehicle, just want you to see where the oil drain bolt is located and also the oil filters. Okay, so coming under the car, there's the oil drain bolt right there. So that's your oil drain bolt. And then from there, you have this circular cutout next to it right here. And that's going to be your oil filter. Okay? So your oil filter's right there in that circular cutout, and that's why we're going to use a cap style oil filter wrench so we can grab that filter out of there. So that kind of lets you know where to find that right under your skid plate. You don't need to take anything off. You can access both of them under your car. There's a good look up in there at that oil filter. Alright, so for our oil change, I like these pictures. I'll put all the links in the description. So this car takes 5W20. I'm finishing off this Mobile 1. We're switching this car next time to the Valvoline Restore and Protect. I'm going to put links to that in the video description. This time, so I got 4.2 quarts. That's the capacity for this car. I've already got that in here. This is a Hyundai Kia oil filter, which is fine quality. I'm going to be switching to either most likely the Pure Later Boss or the Wix XP after this oil change, but there's nothing wrong with this filter. It's just those other ones are a premium filter. So what we're going to do on our filter is this is clean oil, clean glove. You've got this rubber ring right here. So we're going to dip our finger in the clean oil. We're going to lubricate that ring. Get all surfaces, the top surface, the little bit on the side that sticks out, and the little bit on the inside that kind of, sticks up just a little bit, just so that's completely covered. Next, we're going to just wipe our glove off. I'm going to pre-fill this oil filter. It does, come up from the bottom, so when they're designed that way, which most cars are, you can pour oil in the center. It'll fill up quickly, but then when you step back a second and watch it disappear, it filters through the the chambers, and it'll go down. So you just wait a few seconds. It doesn't need to be filled up all the way, but I try to. So, and we'll just leave it like that. So the advantage of using a pitcher is I already have my full quantity, the 4.2 quarts measured, so I don't have to worry about keeping track of how much I just put in that filter. It's already accounted for in the total capacity. So my oil's ready to go. When we're ready to fill that up, my oil filter is ready to go. So my setup for getting the old filter off is I'm going to be using a 3/8 inch ratchet. I'm going to use an extension to get up in there, up into that area, and I'm going to use this cap style filter wrench for Hyundai Kia. I'll put links in the description. This allows this cap to fit up in there. Since you can't really get your hand up in there with an oil filter wrench, you can get your hand up to grab the filter, but you can't get a wrench in there and have room. So this cap style will come straight up, it'll grab it, use it to loosen it. So this cap style filter will go on this 3/8 inch extension. It's on my ratchet, and so that's what I'm going to use. So let's go give that a try. And then when we get to our oil drain bolt magnet, I have this 17mm magnetic socket, so I won't lose my drain bolt in my oil pan. So let's go see how we can do over here. Or not. I'll just kind of push the extension on. Now I know I'm rotating it. I'll go ahead and take it off, because that's all you really need is to loosen it, and then it's really gonna start making a mess here when I loosen it. So really no good way to do it. I do want to try something. I say there's not a good way to do it. That sounds like a challenge. So here's what I want to try. I've been thinking about this. I've never tried it. I'm going to use my Milwaukee right angle ratchet, just like I do on my drain bolts. And that way my hands can be out of the way. Let me get this pan underneath, and I can have my hand out of the way. And then that worked. That got the oil filter out. I was just kind of draining in the pan there. I think the thing I could have done better is used a shorter extension, which would have made it easier to get my hand out of the way and to get that oil filter right into that drain pan. So, alright, so we got the base cleaned up. We got our new filter. So we're going back up. I can see that clean base. I've already cleaned it with my rag. And so I just want to don't use any tools on this step and just try and get this oil filter lined up with the bolt, which that took me a second. So now I'm turning it, now I'm tightening it to the base, just using one hand. So one of the challenges is that hand gets oily, and then you're trying to get a good grip on the oil filter, because you definitely don't want to use any tools, but at the same time it needs to be snug. Also want to point out that we did confirm that the black rubber ring came out with our old filter, and the base was clean, did not have any debris, no rubber rings, nothing on it. So we got our new clean filter on there, and alright, so I'm just gonna get another new glove, and there we go. So I got that on correctly. So for the oil drain bolt, I got a 3/8 inch with a small extension and a 17mm magnetic drain bolt to grab my drain bolt. Okay, so we got that broke free. Now that we got the drain bolt loose, I'm going to use this to get it out so that I can be out of the way, hopefully, of the oil that pours out when we get it loosened. I'll get the drain pan in place. And then what that, so that worked. That worked successfully, and then what it does is it allows you to stay out of the path, and then that magnetic 17mm magnetic socket, what it does is it hangs on to your drain bolt. So instead of the drain bolt falling into the pan, it sticks to the socket because of the magnet that's in the socket. So I'll put links to that magnetic socket in the video description. I find that works for really all my vehicles. I believe have the same size of drain bolt. Both my Hondas use this same magnetic socket. So now, while that's draining, I have my new crush washer ready right here. So I want to make sure that my crush washer came off of my old bolt, and there it is. So I just have to get that off there, put my new one on. Alright, so I got my drain bolt, I put a new crush washer on. So now I'm just gonna wipe this off and then start putting it back on there by hand. Just kind of wipe that surface. You want to always start these by hand so you don't cross thread your oil pan and have a major problem. Okay, so now that we've contacted the base, we're gonna torque it down. Alright, so we're gonna tighten this drain bolt to 30 foot-pounds using our 3/8 torque wrench. Hands. I like to use two hands so I can use one to push where I'm coming in at a straight angle. Okay, so that's 30. So just till you hear that click. So from the bottom of the vehicle, we're done. Use whatever funnel you want, but I'll put a link to this one. This one actually threads in where the oil goes into, so you don't have to worry about spilling. So it actually just threads right in there, so that when we add oil, it just goes right in there. Capacity is 4.2 quarts. Changed the oil many times, found that to get us where we want to be. Once we're done, I will run the car let it sit and then check it on a level surface just to make sure it's right up to the full, because I monitor this oil closely just to make sure that it's not consuming oil. Alright, so just a quick update. So we used to have some oil consumption with this vehicle. A while back I changed a PCV valve. That helped tremendously, but it didn't solve it, so then I started using 1 quart of Lucas high mileage oil stabilizer per oil change, substituting that for 1 quart of oil. So on this last oil change where we went 5,000 miles, I only had to add 0.25 quarts, so 1/4 of a quart, meaning I wouldn't have even had to do that. It still would have been in the safe range, but that's how good we've gotten this so far. So we didn't use the Lucas this time, we just used the regular oil. So we will monitor it, you know, check it, make sure we're checking it at least every 1,000 miles and seeing if it's consuming any oil. So just wanted to give you an update for those of you that have been following the oil issue. Right now that the oil change is done, I will be snugging up the lug nuts on this last wheel, and then we will lower the car back down to the ground where all the weight is on the ground. Then I will torque all the lug nuts, 87 pound-feet of torque and 36 psi on inflating the tires. So we'll get those torqued down once it's on the ground, get all the tires inflated to 36. At that point the tire rotation will be done. Alright, so we're going to change the engine air filter. We do this every 15,000 miles. This is a Wix air filter. I'll put links in the description. You don't need any tools for this. There's one of these where you just grab it with your hand. This clip is pull out. There's also one right here. This backside right here. I just do that. Then all I do is pick up this box like that. And right there is your engine air filter. It looks clean, but it has been 15,000 miles, so we will change it. So it looks great on that side. That side you can see more dirt, but I'm going to go ahead and change it. It's been 15,000 miles. So this is our new one. I always like to check the orientation. This is our new one that we're going to use. Just make sure the air box is clean. If it's not, you can vacuum it out. Now on this end there's what I call fingers, these little plastic things that have to fit in here and in here. So you just kind of line these up while it's angled and you push it back. You just check on both sides. There's one on both sides. So now that it's back, now this will go straight down and I won't have any trouble putting these clips back where they go. So that's it. That's all there is to it. The engine air filter is changed and we're good for another 15,000 miles. I'll put links in the video description of how you can get this Wix engine air filter, which is highly rated at an affordable price. Not sponsored by them, just in my research, what I recommend is typically a Purolator or a Wix engine air filter. So I hope that's been helpful. Alright, we're going to change out our cabin air filter. I recommend doing this every 15,000 miles. I will put links in the video description of how you can get this Bosch cabin air filter off of Amazon. So in this glove compartment you have this plastic clip on each side. Don't need any tools. You just kind of take the weight off the door and rotate it and it comes out. Just lay it right in there counterclockwise and they come out. Well, don't lay them in there because they're going to fall when we do this. So we'll just set them right down here on the floor. What this does, I don't know if you can see in there, there's this black plastic piece and on either end you squeeze these tabs with your finger. I'm trying to do it, I can't even. There There we go. So what we squeezed was these things right there. We're going to set that down. We're going to reach in. Our air filter is this white thing. Oh my. Look at all those leaves. That's pretty nasty. So this is the orientation, and our airflow is down. Okay, so there's an arrow on there, airflow down. I'm gonna throw that nasty thing out here. We're gonna open up our new one. Okay, airflow down. So it's going to go in just like this, just like the other one came out. Okay, push it in like that. Then we're going to take the plastic piece that we got out. Okay, so that just clips back on. And then all we do is we grab these two gray things here. You can see how they have these little tabs on them, and so that's what you're trying to line up here. So you would kind of hold it there, and once it gets into this area, that's where you put it in at. So we just put that in there and rotate it. We got that side in. Just put that in there, push up a little, rotate it, and this job is done. You changed your cabin air filter. Do that every 15,000 miles.